Kiyosei crossed the far ocean to avoid the war that the gods started. The emperor across the ocean took Kiyosei as his empress. Hirase had brought a locked gold chest with a Pisces sign on it and one day said that the country will only be peaceful when the seal to the box is closed, and if the chest opens one day, the world will collapse into destruction. The emperor asks her what will happen if the chest opens, to which she replies that she sealed the gods who caused the war in this chest. So if the gold chest is opened, the furious gods will drop the humans into hell and destroy the world. The emperor is still curious and asks again, if something like that happens, will there be any way to keep it from happening? The empress replied to him that she had been secretly training soldiers in case such a thing happened. Those warriors protected the gold chest for generations and called themselves Mayabi. After 2,000 years, protecting the gold chest for generations became meaningless, and the Mayabis disappeared one after another. The gold chest was also lost after that, and there was only one Mayabi in the world. And now the seal of the gold chest has been released. Somewhere in a jungle, a young girl is fighting the masked man, but she is struggling to hold her ground. She figures that she cannot escape now and stands there as the hooded figures come out of the woods and address her as Mayabi. She says to the man named Soma that it is not over yet and raises her hand to attack him. Soma is not affected by her attacks and instead mocks her, saying it is too late for her. Mayabi just tells him to be quiet and goes to attack him again, but this time she becomes the target of the deadly rays he sent towards her. The girl falls on the road due to the attack and is suddenly hit by a truck that was coming on the road. Meanwhile, somewhere at a restaurant, there are a group of guys eating when one of them suddenly slaps the waiter named Jungmin, who brought their food late. Right outside the restaurant, the paramedics are taking away Mayabi's body while her soul stands there watching her body be driven away. Just then, the Jungmin who got slapped comes out of the restaurant to smoke. He notices the drunk guy from earlier driving his car despite his friend trying to stop him. The Jungmin doesn't pay it much attention, thinking to himself that the guy is really stupid as he shouldn't have drunk so much. He is surprised when Mayabi suddenly appears in his line of vision. He asks her who she is, but Mayabi ignores his questions and instead asks if he is going to leave that guy alone because he might die. The Jungmin replies that doesn't matter to him, which annoys Mayabi as she asks him what would happen if it did. The Jungmin doesn't take her seriously as he continues to walk away, saying that why should it matter to him that the guy is drunk? Mayabi suddenly points her finger towards the road and asks Jungmin how he would explain this. He's confused at first, but when he looks towards the road, he is shocked to see the car driving directly towards him. He starts to panic and asks for Mayabi to help her, but she doesn't make any move to save him and just asks him to wait for a second. Just then, the friends of the drunk step in front of the car, asking him to stop, but the car doesn't even slow down. Instead, a blue shield appears around the two friends. The car crashes into the shield and goes flying into the air. When the car comes back down and crashes into the ground, the injured drunk man comes out of the car with his eyes green and talks to Mayabi, asking if she is really going to interrupt him. Surprisingly, the Jungmin has also taken a strange form as he tells the man to go back to hell, addressing him as Soma. Soma comes out of the car, saying to Mayabi that hell is a place for him. The Jungmin, who has taken on the role of Mayabi now, utters a chant, saying that the light that was resting in the darkness is time to awaken. Soma is a little surprised by this as he sees Mayabi channeling some blue light and sending it towards him, but he still finds it interesting. Soma easily dodges the attack as he says to Mayabi that he knows well of his powers. Soma then dashes towards Mayabi, saying it is time for him to die, and holds him up by his neck. A green substance starts to surround Mayabi's body as Soma says to him that his whole body will be paralyzed and his consciousness will be blurry. He says that Mayabi will meet a sweet death and hallucinations so he doesn't have to be sad. Mayabi has almost lost consciousness, but he suddenly flashes white as the green starts to disappear from his skin, and he attacks Soma again. Due to this attack, Soma comes out of the drunk person's body and sees Mayabi in the Jungmin's body holding the limbs of the drunk man as she shouts that it is over. Soma slowly goes back into the car as he starts to disappear and says to Mayabi that she is pretty good and she will meet him real soon. He starts to threaten her life, but before he can complete his sentence, he disappears. Mayabi also leaves the Jungmin's body, which slumps on the ground after that. She looks at the Jungmin who is lying unconscious there, thinking to herself that he can be useful to her. The Jungmin is back in his house as he wakes up after dreaming about the events of the previous night. He's confused as he thinks to himself that maybe it was all a dream, but he is startled when another voice inside his room says that it was not a dream. He looks around to find Mayabi sitting on the sofa. He recognizes her from the last day, but Mayabi ignores his comment and instead tells him that he lost consciousness. So she brought him to the motel because she doesn't know where his house is. The Jungmin asked her why he was unconscious, but before she could answer, he suddenly stood up and started jumping around. Mayabi is confused by his antics, but he tells her that he is just checking if he has any fractures because he can't be perfectly fine when he was hit by a car. She explains to him that he wasn't hit by a car, and when she went into his body, it wasn't able to withstand the sudden change. She then moves her hand towards him, asking if he wants to hold her hand. But when he moves to shake his hand, he is shocked when it passes right through her. Mayabe explains to him that it won't work because she is a soul. At first he thinks that her name is Soul, but she explains to him that she is a dead person, a ghost. He is confused by this as he asked who was the person that brought him to the motel, So Mayabi explains to him that she went into his body and walked there. The jumpman is shocked to hear all this as he suddenly sits beside a cupboard, facing away from her, and tells her to go away. He suddenly starts to pray to God. Seeing his condition, Mayabi says that he doesn't need to be afraid because she doesn't bite, but instead, she needs his help. She says that if he helped her, she would give him all of her heritage. But the jumpman continues to pray to get rid of her and says that he has a part-time job, so he has to go to work. Mayabi says that people at his work will not be able to remember him because there was a slight accident, so she put a spell on it so they can't remember you. She says that she put a spell specifically on his absence so nobody would know of his existence. He still believes that she is lying to him and starts to move discreetly towards the door, but before he could leave, Mayabi says from behind that she has $4 million worth of heritage and asks him if he really doesn't want it. After hearing that, the jumpman comes to a halt and inquires as to why she would want to give him so much money. She says that it is because she died, and this is money a Mayabi has to use. The jumpman is confused by the word Mayabi and asks her if it would be real money, still not believing her completely. She says that she's a dead person, so she doesn't have any reason to lie to a live man. This gains the jumpman's attention as he finally turns back, asking her where the money is. Meanwhile, in an apartment building in apartment number 1105, a woman is sitting in the corner, crying and begging for someone to stop. She apologizes repeatedly, but no one hears her and she suddenly screams loudly. Outside on the road, Mayabi is walking with the jumpman right behind her. He asks her where they are going, but she just tells him to follow her. He loudly asks her if she is really going to give him money. Mayabi doesn't reply to him, and instead he grabs the attention of the people standing there, who think he is insane for talking to no one. He realizes his mistake and starts talking about how he looks insane, but suddenly Mayabi tells him to wait as she goes still in front of him. The jumpman is confused by this and asks her if something is wrong. He thinks that she stopped because he was being too impolite. After all, she's going to give him $4 million even if she's a ghost. Mayabi just replies that this is not it and grabs his shoulder to stop him from moving forward, but it makes him see all the spirits surrounding them. He falls down on the floor as he tells Mayabi not to touch him because he doesn't want to see the spirits. She is not focused on him and instead is confused by the fact that so many spirits are present here. She mumbles that this is one of the signs of destruction in this world, shocking the jumpman with her statement. They go to a nearby apartment building where Mayabi tells him the code, and they enter the apartment next to apartment 1105. The jumpman is surprised to see that the place is very clean, and it doesn't seem like someone is living there. The only normal thing they find is a laptop on a table, so Mayabi tells him to pick up the laptop, saying there are a lot of files on there. He's happy to get a laptop for free, and she then tells him to open the second drawer on the right of the sink in the kitchen. In the drawer, he finds a car key, and Mayabi tells him that it is from a famous brand, so he has to take care of it. He is ecstatic to get the car, but Mayabi doesn't wait for him to celebrate, as she tells him to lift the very loft of the sofa. What he does is she tells him he finds a lot of files on that sofa. She tells him to pack the file in a paper envelope, and when he completes the task, she says that it is done. She starts to move out of the apartment, which surprises the jumpman as he asks about the money, but Mayabi says that they are going to get the money now. The jumpman shockingly says that money wasn't there, which angers Mayabi as she turns back towards him, scaring him with her cold stare. He stumbles to defend himself, saying that it is not what he meant, but she continues to move towards him. He's surprised when she passes him and instead goes near the wall behind him and says that there is something next door. She suddenly walks through the wall, leaving him shocked. She looks around that place and finds a woman sitting in the corner. In the meantime, the jumpman turns on the laptop, but to his disappointment, it is not even connected wirelessly. Just then, Mayabi comes back there, again traveling through the wall. He says that it must be good that she is dead because now she can walk through the walls. He then asks her if he can ask a question, and after getting her permission, he says that this is his first time seeing a ghost and isn't as scary as he thought. She is confused by his question, so he quickly explains that he wants to ask her how it is like being a ghost and if there is something in the afterlife. Mayabi replies that she is still here because she is stuck, and when he asks about the reason, she replies that she has to accomplish her mission. He asks what kind of mission it is, but Mayabi only replies that he will find out if he comes along with her. He is still curious about everything, and as they walk out of the apartment, he asks her how he passed out back then, to which she replies that it was because he wasn't able to withstand the sudden force. He again asks about the sudden force and if it is harmful to him, but Mayabi assures him that it is nothing like that and he will be fine once he gets used to it. The jumpman says that he figured she could see all the ghosts that he saw earlier and asks if there are any ghosts here right now, to which she replies that there are a lot of them here. He quickly moves away from her, saying that he hopes she doesn't show them to her because he's not very used to those things. He gets on the elevator, but Mayabi stops there instead of getting on, and when he asks her about it, she says that they will visit next door before leaving. He quickly gets out of the elevator, asking her why they need to go to someone else's house. Mayabi says that there is a problem they have to solve, which annoys him a little as he asks her why they have to solve the problem, especially him. When Mayabi asks if he really wants $4 million, he quickly changes his attitude and goes to ring the bell to the apartment next to them, 1105. They wait for a while, but no one comes to open the door. He says that he doesn't think there is anyone inside, but Mayabi replies that there is because she saw someone when she went into the house. Inside the apartment, the woman slowly opens her eyes, which are flashing red. Outside, he says that there isn't anyone inside. Mayabi ignores him and instead just tells him to say that he came because of the problem regarding the child. He shouts what she said, and Mayabi tells him to add that he is here for the dead child. He also repeats what she said, but there is still no movement, and he says that they should go because he can't hear anything and because he did what he could do. He says that the door is closed, and it is not like he can pass through the wall like her. He stops ranting when the door creaks open and the woman peeks outside, asking him who he is. He replies that he had something to tell her about the problem regarding the dead child. She asks if he is saying he will solve the problem for her. The jumpman quickly looks at Mayabi, who nods, and he says to the woman that he will solve her problem. His answer surprises the woman as she opens the door completely, her eyes going back to their normal color as she repeatedly asks him if he will solve the problem for her. After he assures her that he will solve her problem, the woman invites him in. The jumpman is confused by the dark environment and goes to turn on the light, but the woman immediately stops him, saying that the child dislikes the light. He immediately stops and apologizes for his mistake, but Mayabi tells him to turn on the light, and when he does that, the woman is furious at his actions. At the same time, in another part of the city, a man named Yunte is asked by his colleague to join them for dinner, but he refuses, saying he has to go back home. They are annoyed by his behavior as they discuss among themselves how it has been a year, and after he got officially remarried, he became weird. Back at the apartment, Mayabi is shouting at someone that she will destroy them if they don't leave now. The jumpman is confused by her behavior, so she tells him that someone else took over the woman's body. Just then, the woman's body starts to change, turning into a monster. He is very confused by this, but Mayabi says that they need to get rid of the spirit first, and for that, she needs to borrow his body for a while. Before he could comprehend the situation, Mayabi took over his body and started talking with the evil spirit. She tells them to go back to hell now because this is not the place for them to be. She suddenly feels a sharp pain in her ribs and looks down to find a child stabbing her with a knife. The woman is trying to stop her son, Jaho, but her pleas are left unheard as the spirit encourages the child to stab Mayabi. The child continued to stab Mayabi, which caused her to leave the body of the jumpman, but before the child could attack him again, she put a protective shield around the jumpman. The woman pleads for them to get out of the apartment because they will get hurt, but the jumpman says that he wants to get out too. But the child is pissing him off now. The kid continues to stab the jumpman as the spirit encourages him to do so. The jumpman turned towards Mayabi, asking for her name again, and when she told him it was Ron, he asked her what he should do about that kid. Ron replies that the kid is alive so they can't harm him, and they have to take the shield stuck on him. He again asks her what they should do, but he gets confused when she again points to the child, saying they have to kill him. Just then, the phone starts ringing, and the kid, Jaho, runs to pick it up. On the phone is his dad, Yunte, who asks him if he is playing with his mom. Jaho replies that it is very fun. Yunte again asks him what he did with his mother, to which Jaho replies that he cut his mom's hair with a knife and cut her back with a nail. He continues that he dug under her nails with a needle and blood kept coming, so it's interesting, and it is regretful that he was only able to slap her 30 times. The jumpman is enraged to see the kid talking like that, but Ron stops him from doing anything and points to the spirits, saying they have to get rid of them. Yunte replies to his son that it sounds fun. Jaha asks him when he is coming home so they can play together, to which Yunte replies that he is at the parking lot and will be home soon. Inside the apartment, the jumpman asks Ron what he has to do now because his wounds are hurting. She replies to him that it will be hard, but they have no choice, as she will have to borrow his body again. Before they could follow the plan, Yuna came there and was surprised to see a strange man in his house. Ron tells the jumpman to repeat what she is saying, and on her instructions, he tells Yunte that there are two spirits that are trying to harm his wife and kid here, and they are going to destroy them. Yunte doesn't reply positively to them and only says that he doesn't know what they are talking about and that they should get out of his house. The jumpman replies that it is not possible because he is pretty pissed now and he will have to kick out those trashy guests. Suddenly, the spirit in Jay's mom's body says that she is the owner of this place. Just then, the jumpman turns to Ron, asking if harming the kid is the only way, but his statement enrages Yunte, who tells him to get out of his house right now or he will let him off easily. The woman also pleads with them not to harm their kid, while the spirit keeps chanting to kill the child. Ron thinks for a moment and then says to the jumpman that she needs to borrow his body once again. The jumpman replies that it is Uk, but he hopes she will end it soon because the process is painful. Yunte is confused by who Jumpman is talking to again and shouts at him to get out of his house. They ignore his ranting, and in the meantime, Ron takes over the Jumpman's body. Ron turns to the spirit in the mother's body and says that the reason she will harm the human kid is to kill her kid. The spirit is enraged to hear this as she shouts that if he even touches her kid, she will torture him to death. Yunte tries to stop Ron the Mayabi, but he ignores him and joins his hand to start performing a ritual. He first secludes them from Unit so he can't disturb them and turns to the spirits, asking, now that the distraction is gone, should he start? Before giving them any time to react, she starts the spell to get rid of the evil spirits. Due to Mayabi's attack, the child's spirit is separated from the human body, and he puts him behind protective bars. The evil spirit is surprised that Mayabi doesn't hurt her child, to which Mayabi replies that he just took the soul of her kid out of the body of a human kid using her hands. The evil spirit is furious at the fact that Mayabi has tricked her. Mayabi says that if she knows that she has been tricked, she should disappear and then cast a spell of hell. The spirit is holding dearly onto her child as they are attacked by the white light sent by Mayabi, who says to them that they don't need to hold on so desperately because he will now wipe them from the face of earth. Mayabi is left speechless when she sees the spirit crying as she holds onto her son and tells him not to be cared for. Mayabi is worried for a moment that he was too late, but soon the evil spirits disappear and she repeatedly says sorry to her son. After finishing the mission, they come back to the apartment where Mayabi leaves the gentleman's body. She tells him to inform the couple that they took care of everything. He repeats what she is saying, telling the couple that they took their space somewhere else for a moment and took care of it, but they have something to repent for. Yuntae asks him what he is talking about, to which the gentleman replies that they are fully aware of what he is talking about. Before Yuntae could say anything to him in reply, he said that he would show them the past as Mayabi raised her hand to start the process. Yuntae gets a flashback of the time when he was out for a walk with his family and got a call from his mistress. He excuses himself from his family for a moment and says to that woman, why did she call in even when he told her not to? In reply, she asks him how long she has to wait and when he is going to get a divorce. Yuntae replies to her that he already told her that his wife is a ticking time bomb. She will die soon and they just have to wait a bit longer. The woman suddenly cuts the call, and when Yuntae turns back, he is shocked to see his wife standing there. That night, his wife said to Yuntae that she couldn't live long anyway, and he didn't have to wait until she died as she would divorce him. Yuntae tries to act oblivious, but she ignores him and continues that she will do this on one condition, which is that he has to raise their son well. That is all she needs. A few days later, Yuna has brought the mistress home and introduces her to Jay as his mom, but he refuses to accept her, saying that he wants his real mother back. The woman also tries to coax him, but he keeps crying and shouting for his mother. She suddenly changes her demeanor as he asks him who he is shouting at and slaps him hard. In the coming months, she will also become pregnant with her child, but she will continue to beat Jay mercilessly whenever she has a chance. When she pushes him into the bathtub, she gets angry when he faints, saying that he is pretending in front of her. She then leaves to go to the mart and tells him to repent while she's not here, saying that if he tells his father about it, she will not leave him alone. When she left to go to the mall, Jay kept crying and calling for his mother. He suddenly starts to see his mother and says that he wants to sleep. His mother tells him to lie on her lap as she will sing him a lullaby so he can sleep. He slowly falls unconscious while listening to his mother sing a lullaby to him. Back in the present, the couple is shaking and crying after seeing the memories from their past. The gentleman says to them it was revenge on them from the mother who lost her child just like that, and there was the soul of their old dead child in the body of their current child. Yuta keeps crying as he and his wife both say sorry again and again. The gentlemen say that the people they should apologize to are Yuntae's ex-wife and his child. They quickly kneel down, again apologizing to the spirits. The gentleman is extremely annoyed by their behavior as he shouts at them to go to the shrine, church, or any other place like that according to their religion to pray and comfort the dead, or else those spirits will come back. They then leave the apartment as the gentleman slumps down beside the wall, tired from all the activities. Later, Ron takes him to a garage where she shows him a luxurious car and says that there is cash in the trunk minus $300,000, so it will last for now. The gentleman, who was already mesmerized by the car, is astonished to find that she keeps this much cash in the car and voices his surprise to her. Ron replies that it is the result of the safekeeping of the heritage that has lasted for 2,000 years. She wants to say something else but stops herself and just says to him that she will give him the $4 million when they get a chance. Later, they are driving on the road when Ron asks him why he didn't report the couple to the police. He replies that even if he reported it to the police, it is not like a dead person will come back to life, and he thought that it would be better to pray for the dead. She asks what would happen if they didn't repent, to which he replies that he lied to them about spirits coming back and that they should do something now. He changes the topic and instead asks him where they are going. Ran replies that they are going to the south first towards Kimhan. He is surprised that they are going this far, but he continues the conversation by asking how old she is. Ron replies that she was 22 when she died, which surprises him as she is not much older than him, and he asks her to talk less formally with him. They continue to have small conversations while driving towards the south. After driving for a while, the gentleman abruptly stops the car and says that he has to go to the hospital as his wounds from the stabbing of the kid need assistance. Ron says that there are lots of bothersome things that will happen if they go to the hospital. He's angry to hear that and says that he was stabbed. What would happen if he died? Ron quickly says that she didn't mean it, and this town is her base. She has a doctor nearby, so they will go there. She takes him to a house, which doesn't please the gentleman very much because he was expecting a hospital, but Ron says that the doctor's skills are amazing. Meanwhile, At some other place, in a lawyer named Kim Jae-hyuk's office, comes a man who doesn't look like a very wealthy man by his appearance. Kim is concerned about the money part, but he still tells the man to sit down and ask him what he can help him with. The man says that he's trying to sue a lawyer and asks if it is possible. Kim replies that it is possible, but it won't be an easy case, and asks him to explain the situation. The man starts telling his story, saying that 10 years ago, he had a trial in court for the crime of murder, but he was innocent. He says that he had no money and they assigned him a public defender, but that lawyer attended the trial without interest and he was unable to prove his innocence and had to go to jail. Kim pretends to be sad, saying that those lawyers should be insulted because even if they are public defenders, they are not supposed to work like that. The man says that he is planning to ask for compensation for the last 10 years of his life that were spent in jail. Kim is writing on his notepad as he asks the man about the laborer and if he is from around here, but he is left speechless when the man says that it was him. Kim gets furious to hear that and shouts at the man to get out of his office, asking if he is trying to threaten him. The man is also angry as he says that he spent 10 years in jail because of Kim. Even his wife ran away, and he deserves compensation for that. Listening to their shouting, guards come inside, asking if there is a problem. So Kim tells them to drag the guy out of his office. As they are taking away the guard tells him that he should go where he is making trouble. But before they could drag him away, he asks them to wait a moment. He tells them to take their hands off him, as he will go out quietly on his own. The man then says to Kim that even though he expected this, it is still mistreatment, and he says that he will leave, but that they should share a handshake for the last time. Kim is suspicious of his requests, but the man assures him that he doesn't have any ulterior motives. Kim finally shakes his hand and asks, "Is he done now?" But the man suddenly starts to laugh, and in seconds, Kim's whole body is lit on fire. His guards are shocked by the events, as the man says to a burning Kim that someone like him can die, a man like him who only cares about money. He then turns towards the guards, and without giving them time to react, he also sets one of them on fire. The other tries to run away, but the man points his hand towards him, causing him to catch fire too. Meanwhile, the Jungman is lying on the bed as the doctor asks him if Ron is really next to him. He says that it is true, but he is sure that she doesn't believe him. To his surprise, the woman says that she believes him because she has been watching Ran for a long time. She then says to him that he will self-heal later on with Maya, but he says that it probably will not happen. She says that she is done and will make you some medicine, but he is not satisfied as he says that it still hurts and he will have to visit a hospital. Ron quickly says that it is not possible, and when he asks why, she replies that there is a fire raging in this town. Outside, several buildings are caught on fire as the man from the lawyer's office keeps shouting that he will destroy everything in this pathetic world. When they come out to look at it, the Jumpman says that it is a big fire, and they should call the firehouse, but Ron disagrees with him and says that it is Agmi's fire. She then says that the only people who can suppress that raging fire are Mayabi. The Jumpman is unhappy with the situation and he asks her if he will have to resolve it again. Mayabi tells him not to worry, saying this is not Agni's power itself. She explains that Agni's fire isn't as weak as this, so she is sure that someone borrowed Agni's power. He asks what they should do now, but before she could reply to him, there was a sudden explosion in the city, and its impact even caused the Jumpman to fall to the ground. Mayabi tells him to get the car, saying that they have to go there right now. In the city, people are running away from the fire, which is destroying everything. Just then, Mayabi and the Jumpman come there in the car, talking about his amazing driving skills. He stops the car after a while, saying that he can't go any further because it will be too dangerous. When he senses that Mayabi is not on board with his suggestion, he angrily asks if she is trying to roast him to death, but Mayabi says that they have to go further at any cost, and if she casts a fire-resistant spell, he won't be harmed at all. He again says that they will burn to death if they go anywhere near the fire because no human can survive such a fire. She suddenly points to a figure standing in the middle of the fire and asks, "What about that person?" He is shocked to see him standing like that in the fire and says that he must be a monster, but Ron says that he is not a monster but the man who borrowed Agmi's power. Just then, the man comes out of the fire, still shouting that he will burn it all. Fire brigade cars also reach there and tell their cars to fail back, saying it is dangerous. The Jumpman starts to drive back, which confuses Mayabi as she asks him what he is doing, to which he replies that they should let the firemen take out the fire. Listening to his reasoning, Ron shouts that they can't get rid of the fire. A week before this incident, the man who was causing the fire was sitting in a temple room when a young woman appeared in front of him and he asked her what she wanted. The woman asks him if he has a lot of suppressed anger inside, but he only tells her not to say anything meaningless because he doesn't have any money. She ignores his statement and instead repeats his story of going to jail and his wife running away. She also knows about his mother who was left alone and died from afar. He is shocked by the fact that she has so much information about him and asks her how she knows that. Instead of replying to his question, she only says that his life isn't fair. He asks him who she is, but once again she ignores him and instead says that she will help him. She will give him everlasting fire so he can take out all of his anger. But he just has to follow one rule. Back in the present, the fire department is trying to put out the fire, but the man sends a firebomb towards them, causing all of their vehicles to catch on fire, and the workers are also affected. Mayabi asks the Jungman how long he is going to watch this, but he finally gives in and starts driving the car so they can go in. When they are about to enter the fire, Mayabi puts a protective shield around them so they are not affected by the fire. After seeing that the fire is spreading on the streets, the Jungman starts to panic as he tells Ron to take over his body as the people are being burned to death. Ron quickly takes over his body and, using her powers, jumps to where the demon man is standing, causing all the fires. He asks her who he is, to which she replies that he is in Mayabi. This shocks the man as he remembers the rules the woman has told him, and the first one of them is that he has to run away whenever he meets a Mayabi. Ron is surprised when the man suddenly runs away from there and is planning to chase after him, but after looking around, she realizes that they have to get rid of the fire first. Mayabi draws a pattern on the floor and causes a spell, the Ice of Maya, to get help putting out the fire. In the meantime, the demon man quickly hides behind a wall and is relieved that he managed to escape. Even though he is still surprised by the fact that Mayabi actually exists, he is still happy with the fact that he burned down the world with his amazing flames. Back with Mayabi, she puts out the fire with the help of the ice monster she created. After the burning flames have subsided, she looks around and is sad to see the innocent people that were affected by this fire. She suddenly hears a noise and looks back to find that the demon man is setting the things on fire again. She starts to move towards the guy, but realizes that it won't work and she has to do something else. She first tells the ice monster to suppress that guy, and in the meantime, she will put out the fire with a wave. The ice monster rushes to the guy, and as Mayabi spreads a wave of ice around to put out the fire, the monster stabs the man with an ice stake. When the man looks around, he is surprised to see himself in a secluded place. His attention is diverted when Mayabi appears there and says that it is her spell and only 2 of them are in there. She says that she will have to take Igni's power from him because he will be corrupted by that power. The man starts to laugh to hear that as he says that he is already corrupted because this world threw him away, and now in return he will throw this world away. He is again attacked by ice and his hands slowly start to burn. He is confused by all this as Mayabi says to herself that the time is now and she has to take a glance into that guy's mind. She uses the magic eye to look into the man's mind and sees a pregnant woman in his imagination. She tries to guess who she is and asks him if she is the reason he is raging like that. The man only lies on the ground as his power was already leaking from his body, and now he just cries for his wife. About 10 years ago, the man Jung was living a happy life with his wife as they were expecting their first child. They were happily talking about their future as his wife mentioned that they needed to be more careful now because raising a child is not an easy job. He just tells her not to worry about anything and has to leave the room when the doorbell rings. When he goes out, he is surprised to see the police who don't listen to him and just say that his clothes match the person they saw on CCTV. He is confused by all this and asks them what it means. An officer replies that he had quite a history, and even though he was living peacefully these days, he couldn't hold it in and kill a person. He is confused by the accusations as he says that he stole when they had no food but didn't kill someone. Just then his wife also comes out to see what is happening, but he assures her not to worry, saying it is nothing and there must be something wrong for them to assume he is a murderer. Later he was in jail when the lawyer Kim came to meet him and said that it was not like that. He explains that although the security camera was a bit blurry, he was in the video, and says that he doesn't even have an alibi. Jung replies that his face wasn't caught in the video and there were a lot of people wearing the same clothes as him, but Kim says that it is best for him to admit the crime instead of doing all this. Kim says that there wouldn't be an end to this if he claimed innocence, since the evidence and conditions are unfavorable to them. He might be sentenced to execution or life imprisonment. He continues that even if he is innocent, it will be better to admit that he committed the crime and reflect on it because it is a better solution if he wants to come out of jail quickly. Jung was reluctant to follow through with this because he didn't kill the man, but he agreed to go with Kim's plan nonetheless and asked Kim to treat him well because he trusted him. Kim has thought to himself that he wished so much for a person who doesn't have any money, and it was a good choice to trash him off quickly. Back in the present, Mayabi takes back her magic eye as Jung explains that his wife couldn't take it and ran away. His mother, who was left alone through all the humiliation she suffered, believed in his innocence and withstood it, but passed away from a sudden fire. He says that he did as he was told by the company lawyer and was sentenced to imprisonment for 15 years, then came out of jail only in 10 years because he was commutated as an ideal prisoner. He suddenly starts crying and babbles that if he was not a hobo, the lawyer would have worked harder for him, and only if he were a better person, his family wouldn't have been destroyed like this. He keeps crying as he says sorry to his mother and wife. All news channels are reporting that the whole city was engulfed in a mysterious flame and turned into ashes. There were 10 deaths resulting from the major fire accident. A little child is also watching the news. His mother tells him to turn off the TV, but he replies that he is listening to the news. She tells him to watch something else instead of news about deaths, but he replies that all the news has this on because it was a sudden news flash. She also goes near the TV to hear the news, and just then, they show the person who is suspected of the incident. She is shocked to see Jung on the screen. Back with Mayabi, she says that she understands his rage, but he tried to destroy the world, and to calm his rage, many people have died. Jung again starts talking by replying to Mayabi, and saying that this is where he used to live 10 years ago, and even though there are a lot of new constructions and changes, it is still the same place where the people who made fun of him, caused his wife to run away, and even burned his mother all live. He suddenly starts shouting, "What did I do wrong?" and says that he will take revenge for everything. The fire again started to come out of his hands. Mayabie goes to stop him, but she is shocked when she realizes that the effect of the ice has ended and the body is denying her soul. She is worried that if she gets out now, the spell will be broken. But she couldn't stop herself as her soul is separated from the body and the Jungman's body falls on the floor. Jung is momentarily surprised by this, but then he smiles and goes to attack the body. He stops in his tracks when he sees a woman, his ex-wife, standing right in front of him. He is surprised to see her there and says that he thought she ran away, but she replies that she didn't run away but stayed in a room nearby that his mother had prepared for her. In a flashback, we see Jung's mother telling his wife about the room as she says that it will be hard for her to withstand all the humiliation with the baby, so it is better if he hides there and eats the meals she will bring to her. She was worried about her mother-in-law, but the woman only told her not to worry about her, saying that she had lived long enough and telling her to just pretend that she ran away because her husband went to jail. Back in the present, Jung is shocked to hear all this and asks her why she didn't come to visit him, to which she replies that she had a kid and he was moved to a faraway jail. She says that she is sorry because it sounds like an excuse, but it is hard to raise a child by herself. She says that she really waited for him and believed that he would come back one day, but why is he doing all this? He didn't reply to her and moved back slowly as his body was surrounded by the fire. Just then, a young boy comes to his wife, addressing her as a mother and says, "Why is she here? Because that guy is scary?" She turns to her child and politely says that he wanted to see his father, and she points to Jung, saying he is right there. Seeing the little boy, Jung starts to cry and calls the boy towards him. But the kid instead hugs his mother and says that the fire is scary as he already saw on TV that it burned everything, and there is only fire around now. Seeing all this, Jung starts to regret his actions as he says that he thought he didn't do anything wrong and that he was innocent, but now he knows what he did wrong. He says that his family also lives here, but he still tried to get rid of them without knowing. He slowly steps back into the fire as he remembers the second rule the woman told him, which was that he can't collect the fire himself because if he does so, he will make himself a pile of ash because humans can't withstand the fire. As he steps into the fire, it slowly starts to dissipate. He takes a few steps towards his family, saying that he wants to hug his son just once, but the little boy continues to hide behind his mother. Jung's body slowly starts to turn to ashes as he nears his family, wishing to not die just yet, but he only manages to caress his son's cheek for a moment, and then his body turns completely into ashes, disappearing in front of his family. Mayabie is silently watching all this as the fire is out now and the whole world has been burned out. The next morning, the Jungman wakes up in the hospital bed and is relieved to see the doctor there, thinking that he is still under treatment, and that all that was just a dream that he saw the whole world getting engulfed in flames. Listening to him, Mayabie says that it wasn't a dream and the gods that were released from their spell are triggering the wrath of humans, destroying the world. They are putting the world in chaos as their role. He asks her to explain it clearly because he doesn't know what she's talking about. Before she could tell him the story, the doctor interrupted them, saying it seems like he is not very good at controlling his Maya. So can she tag along because her job is to treat Mayabie anyway? The Jungman is mesmerized by her beauty and accepts her request to go with him, saying to Ron that he will listen to her explanation later. Meanwhile, Jung's family is in the memorial house as they have arranged a funeral for him and are now praying for him. The Jungman is driving the car with his travel companions, Ron and the doctor. He asks Mayabie if he tagged along because she is giving him $4 million, but why did she choose him? She says that it is because he can see her, and being able to see dead Mayabie itself is proof that there is Maya flowing in his blood. He asks if Maya is something like mana in the games, to which Mayabie replies that he can think of it like that because it is similar to when he is translating letters from fantasies. She says that Mayabie is a person who makes fantasy real, basically realistic fantasy magic. He can think of it like a magician. She says that for now she will use his body and his Maya, and one day you will realize the meaning of it all. She says that he must have had some type of connection to a Mayabie to have Maya in his body. He changes the topic and asks her why the gods are trying to destroy this world, to which she replies that it is a story passed down only to the Mayabie, and it is because of fear of the destruction of this world. She explains to him that in the country of Ayuda, fear is when the galaxy appears and disappears. It was when the world became corrupted, causing the gods to destroy it and decide to start a new galaxy. She says that it all happened 2,000 years ago, when the end of the world was happening and the Mayabis gathered to decide to trick the god with fantasies. They lured the god to the world made up of fantasies and sealed it right before the god destroyed the world. But if the destructive gods someday broke the seal and became free again, it would be the end of the world. So the king thought of a plan. He called the princess and told her to travel the farthest she could and make a world out of fantasy, then lock the gods inside the fantasy, leaving them to destroy the fantasy world instead. He said to his daughter that if the gods are causing destruction in that world, then they will be safe forever. He says that even if the world is made up of fantasies, destruction in the surrounding areas will still happen and will disappear, so there's a possibility that she will die. Princess Hio has happily accepted his father's challenge without fear of death, but she couldn't keep her promise as she married King Suro. Instead of defending against the gods, she decided to raise Mayabis. Ron and the Jungmin are arguing about why she was called an empress instead of a queen. The doctor interrupts them and says that because King Suro's Kumhuangaya was not a country served in China, the word they use, even though he was kind, would have similar weight to China's emperor. So even if she was a queen, the importance is the same as that of an empress. The Jungmin interrupts, saying that he has no idea how the gods broke free and appeared, and there was only one Mayabi, Ran, but she died, and to complete her mission, she clung to him. She says that it is because Maya is flowing in his body, and she recently found out that even if she died, her soul carried Maya, and when her soul is in that state, it finds a body with Maya flowing in it, and her power multiplies. He's amused to find that her power has been multiplying, and seeing his reaction, Rand says that it is just a hypothesis, that her power only multiplied due to the usage of his body, and she's also curious about their relationship. The Jungmin says that he has one more question and asks her why the gods didn't destroy the world right away and cause mysterious things. She replies that just because there is destruction, it doesn't mean that the world disappears in the blink of an eye. Chaps come first, living and dead come next, and finally, fantasies and realities eventually get mixed up together and drive the world into insanity. She says that they have to keep these things from happening and stop the process of destruction between the gods. The doctor again interrupts them, and after apologizing for stopping their serious task, she asks if they should eat. They stop at a nearby cafe, and the Jungmin is just happy to see the food, which looks delicious. Ron says that she has mentioned that they are heading to Kimha, so why do they need to stop here? To which he replies that if he got a car like this, he would have to brag about it, and she needs to let him visit his school for a second after a meal. The doctor then asks him if the food here is good, to which he replies that he doesn't know because he came here after searching for a food place online. He then asks for her name, but she tells him to call her doctor. They move inside the restaurant where they see an old man playing with a young girl. The old man rushes to them, asking how he can help them and telling him their order. The Jungmin says to him that it seems like his granddaughter has a lot of talent. The old man replies that she is not his biological granddaughter, but she dances when she is happy, and he hesitantly adds that she is a bit lacking. He quickly apologizes for his mistake, but says that he doesn't have anything to be sorry about, and continues the story saying that she got a mother who died in a car accident, and now she lives alone, but the town people are worried about her, so they take care of her. The Jungmin is impressed to hear this, as the young girl also adds that the town people are all amazing. The old man goes near the girl and puts a hand on her back, saying that she can stop dancing now, and then gives her money so she can go buy some snacks. She happily runs out, but is stopped by two people who are sitting outside eating their food and asking her to dance for them. The Jungmin is also watching this and says to Ron that the girl likes to dance, as the old man told him. Ron says that if she likes to dance, then why is she crying? He is shocked to hear this and quickly turns around, only to see the tears dripping from the girl's eyes as she dances for those people. The old salesman goes to a table where a few men are sitting and asks them whose turn it is today. After finding the person, he asks him to switch with him. The man refuses at first, saying that they have to keep an order, but then says that if he gives him some money, he can do that. The old man offers him $100, and after bargaining that he needs 50 more, they construct a deal. The Jungmin and her team drive to a nearby hotel, where Mayabi says that she wants to take a break because something keeps weighing on her mind. They then go to meet the town therapist, where the Jungmin talks to her about Hyunjae. After figuring out who he is talking about, the therapist asks him about his relationship with the girl. He says that he doesn't have any specific relationship with her, but he recently came from the restaurant to eat, and there he saw the girl dancing. But she didn't look happy, and the old men there also mistreated her. The therapist says that they misunderstood because Hyunji dances when she is happy, and has been the same ever since she was a little kid. The Jungmin says that her expression doesn't seem happy, but the therapist insists that he saw it wrong. She says that Hyun's mental age is 7, and after her mother's accident, she needed someone to take care of her, but there is a limit to how much a therapist can look after her. So those grandpas made it fun for Hyunjae. She says that depending on their situation, they donate about $30 to $100, and in a month, the totals are about $230. She says that the funds from the country and other sponsors total about $800, so the money they collect is a lot too. She says that they also visit Hyun's house and fill the rice whenever it is out and buy her food. The Jungmin is surprised to hear all this and asks if they do it with their personal money, to which the therapist replies that he is right, and since Hyun's is not as smart, they also manage her bank account for her, and when the funds come in, they help her with that money. He is suspicious to hear all this, but the therapist tells him not to misunderstand, saying that there are complaints that come in suspecting their innocence, but they are good people. He is dumbfounded to hear all this and comes out of her office. In the car, he asks Ron if she can show him Hyun's past, but Ron says that it is not possible. He is shocked by her reply and asks why she can't do that because she previously showed him the other family's past, but Ron says that there isn't a medium, a soul that is related to Hyun's past, or a fantasy that contains Hyun's soul that has to exist, or even something from her past. He asks if they can use reality in a different dimension, to which she replies that it will be vice versa because a medium to peek into reality in that different dimension is needed. The doctor chimes in on the conversation as she asks him if the talk didn't go too well, to which he responds that even though the therapist said they are good people, it is still weighing on his mind. Ron says that there is no feeling that gods have warped this land, this is just reality, so they should just go. The Jumpmen are shocked to hear that, but Ron says that a Mayabi cannot interfere with things happening in reality. Only when the world becomes warped due to a shield or fantasy will they help out. Listening to this, he starts driving the car, but as soon as Ron starts praising him for making a good decision, he takes a sharp U-turn and says that he is not a Mayabi. In Hyunji's house, she was alone when the old man comes there with a pack of rice. He then starts to touch her, saying that she looks very pretty today, and that since he brought her up, she has to repay him. She tries to stop him and says that it hurts, but he doesn't listen to her and starts to force himself on her, saying that if she can't repay her favors, she's a naughty girl and he will teach her a lesson. They go back to town where he asks a passerby if he knows where Hyun lives. The man replies that there is no one in this neighborhood who doesn't know her, and he asks him why they need to see her. He replies that he came from funds, as there are times when the funds given to receivers are misused. Therefore, he came to check if they were being distributed correctly. The man buys his excuses and tells him the address of Hyun's place. Somewhere in the town, a group of old people are discussing how Chul, who was with Hyun, must be having a good time. They talk about how they can't wait for their turn and discuss how they should use her fund money to go on a trip. But one of them says that it will not be enough because they need to spend at least $300 on her or else there will be a problem later on. One of them mentions his grandson's upcoming birthday and shares his plans to take $400 out of Hyun's fund to give as a gift. Meanwhile, Chul is coming back from Hyun's house when all of a sudden he goes out. He is thinking that it is just a blackout and keeps walking as he receives a call from his wife. He tells her that he just delivered the rice to Hyunji and asks if they need him to bring anything from the store. He has to cut the call early when there is complete darkness in front of him. He uses his mobile's light to move forward while saying to himself that he should have moved Hyunji to a one-room apartment or something, and also that he should have taken the other way to go back to his house. He comes to a sudden stop when he sees a man standing in front of him. He tries to ask him who he is, but the man stays silent, which scares him. He is planning to run away, but he can't move his feet. Just then, the person in front of him takes out a knife and stabs him in the stomach. Jumpman has arrived in the area with the other two and stops a car a little away, saying he will have to walk from there on. He turns around to ask the doctor if she is not coming, to which she replies that a Mayabi's doctor is best to stay far away as their roles are divided into fighting for Mayabis and supporting them. She says that if they are both together, then they will both get injured or the doctor will die, which will be too complex. He then turns to Ron, confirming that she is coming with him, to which she replies that she has to go with him because they are under a contract. As they start walking, Ron asks him what he's going to do after finding Hyunji, to which he replies that he has to check with his own eyes and find a solution as she was crying while dancing. Ron says that if that is not a big deal, and this is something they should resolve, they should at least report it to the police. They come to an abrupt stop when they sense something is wrong, and as he looks down, he is shocked to find a dead body lying there in the pool of blood. The next morning, the people of the town saw the outline of the body and the signs by the police indicating where the dead body was. They are all worried about if the murderer was caught, as one of them says that he knows someone from the police station, and they said that they are suspicious about the first reporter. Meanwhile, Jumpman is in the police station with Ron and the doctor, and the officer says to him that they don't really want to suspect him, but he is the only witness they have. The officer then says that the car he uses doesn't belong to him and asks where he got it from. Jungmin turns to Ron and asks her if he should tell the officer about the car, but before she could reply, the officer interrupted him, asking why he was talking in plain voice. Jungmin replies that it would be hard for them to believe him, that there is a ghost next to him, and it is surrounded by Maya. Before he could complete his introduction, the officer slammed his hand on the table and asked him if he was joking with them. The officer then says that he tracked the origin of the car and that it belongs to the stock company, Kimkwon Gaya, whose CEO is Kyung Yu-chun, and asks if he knows him. Jungmin is confused by the question as Ron tells him that the person the officer is talking about is her teacher. The officer continues that Kyung disappeared 6 months ago, and the only remaining employee, IMC Ron, died due to a car accident a couple of days ago. The officer points to the doctor, asking if she was also there at the time when he found the body, but Jungmin says that she was not with him. The officer is angry when he didn't get any specific information and says to Jungmin that he is caught between missing people and dead people and that he needs to stop lying. Just then, Ron says that if they don't get out right now, another murder will take place. She says that she is taking back what she said about this not being their responsibility and that they have to get out of here now. Ron reveals that the fantasy Hyunji has created has started killing. Jungmin asks her how they will get out of there without being noticed, as there are CCTVs here and the paper he has completed would be a record against him. The officer is annoyed by his behavior as he asks him if he is crazy because he keeps mumbling to himself. But instead of listening to Jungmin's answer, the officer asks him where he got the car, as they are sure he stole it. The doctor interrupts their conversation as she shows the officer her business card and says that the stock company Kium Kwan Gaia had received a loan from their company, and the car was what the late CEO gave them as a pawn. She explains that she heard about the only employee, Siran, passing away and was collecting pawns. She can even show him the contract if he wants. The officer is deep in thought listening to this as Ron asks Jungmin where he found the paper that was under the couch. He replies that they are in the car, so the doctor says to the officer that it is uncanny for the reporter to be treated as a suspect, and she will prove it, so we need to let her go to the car. Another old man from the town is going somewhere when suddenly it starts to pour rain around him. He tries to run but has to stop when he can't see anything due to the sheer darkness surrounding him. He bumps into something and looks down only to find the head of a man lying at his feet. He is shocked to see that and screams loudly. But before he can take action, a man comes there with a knife in his hand. The man cuts the old man's head with one swift motion using his sharp knife. Back at the police station, they show the police officer documents about the car. Jungmin asks if he could go now, but before the officer could answer him, another cop comes running and says that it happened again, and he tells everyone in the strong team to gather up as the chief is calling them. When the officer asks his colleague what happened, the man replies that another headless corpse was found in an alley again. Jungmin is later driving the car when he says to the other two that they only wasted their time. He asks the doctor what these documents are, to which she replies that the Mayabi don't know when they will lose their lives, so they are entangled in a relationship that gives them a mutual debt and collateral damage, and that way they share the wealth. Ron tells him to take care of the documents or else he will be considered a thief. Jungmin instead says that they should take care of the doctor because if it weren't for her, he would have been caught. He then asked Ron what was in that alley, and what does she mean by the illusion murdering someone? Ron says that Hyun's despair made that illusion and she is a guardian to protect herself. She explains that the illusion that should stay in Hyun's imagination has manifested itself in reality and it kills people to protect Hyun-ji. Jungmin asks which god is the cause of this, but Ron replies that she doesn't know because she hasn't seen anything apart from the fantasy of Hyunji's figure. She says that first of all, they should search for Hyunji to take a closer look at exactly what kind of illusion she has. Jungmin is shocked to hear all this as he figures that whatever the townspeople did to Hyun, it seems pretty bad. At the grocery store in the town, the owner of the store is looking around when his daughter asks if he is not going to go outside today. He replies that something bad happened, so he feels depressed and he will go inside and watch TV. After he goes inside the room, he receives a call from his friend, who tells him that one of their friends, Donggu, has also died. He is shocked to hear that as the man on the other side explains that Dong was also discovered in the alley where Chulgu died, and his head was also cut off. The sun is burning, but his whole body was drenched in water as if he were exposed to the rain. He asks his friend where he is, but the man replies that he can't go outside because he is too anxious and tells him to stay inside too. Meanwhile, one of the old men is going towards Hyun's house, planning to spend his time with her, but has to stop due to the police ribbons in front of him. He decides to take another route, but just as he turns around, everything around him is covered in complete darkness. He is confused by all this as according to him he turned towards the entrance, but instead ended up in this extremely dark place. He hears a noise and turns around only to find a dead man standing there, covered in blood. The man with the knife also appears there as the old man falls unconscious on the floor. One of the old men who is watching TV is not happy that he has to stay inside. Suddenly, it stops working and he shouts for her daughter to take a look at it. He then starts to hear loud noises from the light as his room turns into complete darkness. Jungmin and Ron have arrived at the crime scene, and when he asks her if there is anything unusual yet, she replies that first they have to form a battle tray to prevent the illusion from escaping through the alley. She then kneels on the floor, creating a magical circle, and performs her ritual to trap the illusion in the alley. Jungmin is confused by her antics and asks what she is doing, to which Ron replies that even though he can't see it, she is putting a battle tray over the whole alley so that the illusion can't go out into the human world again. After completing her spell, she enters the alley, and after taking permission from her Jungmin, she also follows her there while mumbling that it all seems like a pointless hardship to undergo just for $4 million. Suddenly, they are surrounded by complete darkness, and Jungmin says to her that he can't see anything. Ron holds his shoulder, which brings light to his vision, and he can see a black shadow standing in front of an old man. The shadow asks Jungmin if he can see him, but before he could say anything in reply, the old man started to look around, trying to find where the voices were coming from. The shadow man ignores him and instead moves towards Jungmin and Ron, telling them not to interrupt him because he doesn't want to harm anyone who has nothing to do with it. Ron says that he is only an illusion that Hyunji made up and he should disappear from the world. Instead of following what she said, the man asks her if she ever thought about why Hyunji gave him life. He then holds the old man by his neck and says that 4 old men raped a girl staying in this town. He says that Hyunji was always scared and imagined a person that was protected from these men, and he came out of that imagination. He continues saying that the only way to protect Hyunji now is to kill them all. Ron says that it can't happen because he is destroying the world's order, making it go extinct, to which he replies that if a person is like this, he will have to fight them because he can't disappear before he kills every one of the men that raped Hyunji. Ron turns to Jungmin, asking if he is ready because she will enter his body now, but Jungmin says that he thinks this person is right. Ron is surprised by his statement, but Jungmin says that regardless of whether they die honestly, they are cheap men, and they don't need to fight to rescue this kind of man. Ron says that the people who commit a crime have to be judged by the law that the people of this world made. If illusions and reality get mixed up without boundaries, then the whole world will just collapse. She says that those men have to stand up in court, and they can't decide their crime and punish them. Even though Jungmin is reluctant, he still agrees with her, and she takes quick action, immediately taking over his body. She quickly hits the illusion, who lets go of the man immediately. The old man runs in the hope of escaping, but Illusion says from behind that he can't leave even if he runs away. Miyabi interrupts him, saying that before coming here, she put a battle tray at his entrance, so even if he can't leave, the old man can go out. The old man finally manages to come out of that dark place, and as soon as he lands outside, he remembers the words of the illusion about Hyunji creating him. After figuring out that it is all happening because of Hyunji, he decides to himself that he has to go and torture her. Miyabi and Jungmin's body is standing in front of the vision, as she asks him about blood and the elderly. The vision replies that he has been feeding it human blood, and now it's craving it on its own. The vision then suddenly attacked her without any warning, but the protective shield around her kept her safe. Miyabi then starts to provoke him, saying that he is weaker than she thought and asking if slitting throats is his only move. She says that he had such a narrow-minded imagination, and his methods of killing are so basic because his creativity is limited. The vision is furious to hear all that and goes to attack her, but again, his attack is stopped by the shield. Miyabi says that she will help him get rid of it and then throws a lightning strike towards him, which hits him in the head, and he dies in minutes after being lit on fire. Ron leaves Jungmin's body as he holds his head, which is throbbing with pain, and asks if it is over. Ron replies that it was easy this time, which may be because she is taking more Maya these days. Jungmin continues the conversation, saying that they should report the man who escaped right away, but instead of replying to his suggestion, she asked about his opinion on where Shadow has kept the heads. Jungmin is momentarily confused by her question, so she explains that they keep finding headless bodies around the cities, so there must be some place where heads are hidden. Jungmin replies that they should get out of here first, but before they can make a move, there was sudden lightning as the darkness slowly started to dissipate around them. When the lights come back on, they are surprised to see 2 headless bodies in the alley. They are confused by this as Jungmin asks if this is because the runaway was killed. Ron doesn't reply and instead creates a vision, saying that it will show them the accident that took place here. Meanwhile, the old man reaches Hyun's house and instantly starts shouting, saying that she was the one who did it. He suddenly starts to choke her, saying that she was the one who killed other people in town. The man continues to choke her without any mercy, and when her eyes are about to close, a vision appears behind the old man with a knife in his hand. Junghyun and Ron are still in the alley as he asks her if there was one more fantasy, but she replies that the moment they killed one, Hyunjae probably made another. She says that there was no way that the fantasy could have disappeared before the 4 people were dead. Jungmin suddenly starts running while shouting that they need to go to Hyunji's place as he is worried about her. Jungmin reaches Hyunji's house and calls for her, but when he looks around the apartment, he is shocked to see something. 3 hours later, the town people have surrounded Hyun's place, and the police have also arrived there. The police arrest Hyun as a reporter and report the 4 senior sponsors from a residence center assisting in the sponsorship program have been found killed by a young lady, allegedly receiving their help. Jungmin is driving his car with the other 2 as they also hear the report on the radio. The report says that the police investigators report that the heads of the 4 seniors were found within her residence, as well as her diary, which contains a drawing of a man holding a knife, killing these 4 seniors. Jungmin turns down the volume of the radio as he says that he is thinking about who the god is that gave Hyun these powers. Ron replies that she doesn't know about that because it is neither Somato nor Agnesi, and he can't even grasp who it might be. When he doesn't say anything in reply, Ron changes the topic of conversation, asking if he was going to school just to show off his car. The doctor interrupted their conversation as she asked him what Hyunji was like. Jungmin gets a flashback to when he went to Hyunji's apartment where he saw the dead bodies of old people while Hyunji was dancing beside them. Jungmin tells them this, saying that he could tell by her dancing that she was genuinely happy this time. In the police station, the cops are discussing the case as one of them asks the other, how did they let those guys go? The other person replies that the heads of the 4 seniors were found in Hyunji's house, so these are out of suspicion. The first one is not satisfied with the answer, as he says that his colleague first mentioned that they were the first and last callers, so if they're not connected with Hyunji in any way, why would they have been in her area during that time? His colleague replies that the investigations are already over, so there is no use in worrying over such things, and Hyunji is also believed to be mentally ill, so she will go on speculation that the case is clean. The first officer insists that he smells something fishy, and when his colleague asks him if he is going to investigate the case while he is in suspension without his partner, he says yes, and asks where he can find those guys. His colleague replies that they said they were going to Jimha, but he is not sure about that. After they reach his high school, Jungmin asks the doctor to get off the car and wait for him in the nearby coffee shop, as it doesn't matter because she can't see Ron. Before getting off the car, the doctor asks him if he's going to meet a woman, but in reply, Jungmin only smiles sheepishly. The doctor gets out of the car and walks to the coffee shop, mumbling that it all seems a little sad. After dropping the doctor at the coffee shop, Jungmin and Ron go to his old school, and it still doesn't sit right with Ron that he is trying to brag about the car. Jungmin says to her that she can think whatever she wants, as there is no way she would know the pain of a dirtman who would beg for money. Ron is more interested in finding out who made the word dirtman, as Jungmin asks her if she ever wondered why $4 million made his eyes pop out and gave his body to a ghost for that. She replies that he looks pretty greedy, which annoys Jungmin, as he says that surely someone like her with a huge inheritance would know about that, and how hard is it to pay a student loan? Ron is still nonchalant about the situation, so Jungmin explains the horrors of being less privileged, as he says how hard it is when you are unemployed while you have to pay money for a lot of things like insurance and to your parents. He says that if he tried to get a girlfriend at that time, he would have to pay for 2 people on a date, and the girl would also want a gift. Ron asks him why he's worrying about his girlfriend when he doesn't have one, to which Jungmin replies that preventing something is better than curing it. Ron again says that he is just trying to show off, but before he could retaliate to her comment, they stopped when a girl coming from the other side recognized him. Jungmin is surprised to see that, but he recognizes the girl as Minhee. The girl asks him why he came to school, to which he replies that it was because he was discharged. Ron is annoyed that he is ignoring her, but he doesn't pay her any attention and instead listens to Minhee, who is saying that she heard that he was going to work part-time once he was discharged. Jungmin replies that he is going to stop now because he suddenly got money, and when the girl asks him if he won a lottery, he only replies that it is something similar to that. Ron asks him if he is going to pretend to not hear her, but he continues to ignore her and instead asks Minhee if she is not taking classes. She replies that she doesn't need to take any classes today, so she's just walking around here and there. Jungmin takes the chance to continue the conversation and ask her what is good about this school building. She replies that she doesn't know much about that, but today is looking different from normal days. Minhee tries to walk away, but Jungmin quickly stops her, saying that he also has a car, a foreign one. She is surprised to hear that, and as he continues to tell her about the car's features, she says that he doesn't need to buy a car because not all girls are like that. Jungmin is embarrassed to hear that, but he quickly changes his statement, saying that she seems to have a misunderstanding, and because he got enlisted right after he got his license, he had enough money to buy a car from the start. Ron comments that Minhee is really cold, and it is a surprise that a human like her exists. Jungmin is more focused on Minhee, who asks him if he's going to Guabang as the guys there will be happy to see him, and then bids her goodbyes, saying she has to be somewhere. When she takes a few steps away, Jungmin musters up the courage and stops her, asking if she will go to dinner with him later. She asks what he means by together, so Jungmin quickly says that he is not talking about the 2 of them alone but with other guys from class 2. Minhee Ali says that he shouldn't be surprised to see her later and leaves from there. Junjun finally turns to Ron, asking what she wants. Ron instead asks him if that girl is his first love, but Jungmin says that she doesn't need to know that. She tries to mimic his words when he was talking to Minhee about cars and says that she was watching all this and was more embarrassed than him. Jungmin covers his ears, saying that he can't hear her, as she continues to say that if he ignores her, he will regret it. Jungmin then goes to meet his other friend, who is very excited to see him and says that he had heard about Jungmin being discharged and now he came to see them. After they exchange greetings, the guy asks him if he wants to hang out during dinner, to which Jungmin replies that it sounds good, and Minhee says that she would also come. The guy is confused to hear that, so Jungmin tells him that he just met her on the stairs while he was coming up there. The guy calls him crazy, saying that he is talking nonsense, which confuses Jungmin as he asks how meeting Minhee is nonsense. His friend replies that Minhee died 3 days ago and that she committed suicide by slitting her wrists. He says that Hearst went in and out of the campus today as well. Jungmin is shocked to hear all this and looks back only to see Ron looking at something in the distance. Meanwhile, Minhee is walking out of school in her white clothes as blood drips from her body. And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2, also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.